What's the harsh reality no one accepts? Not everyone is going to like you, no matter how hard you try. My brother, even as a young adult, struggled with this one. He can't help himself, though. He just doesn't want people to add unnecessary difficulty to what he's doing just because they don't like him. He gets that it's how life goes and we have to accept that, but he said it's nice to catch a break. I'd like to gently suggest that people should divorce the two concepts. They are independent of one another. One you have control over, and one you do not. I adore being nice. I love to smile at strangers. Having a lovely, casual interaction fills me up like a balloon. I can deliver compliments with surgical precision. I have legit made strangers cry. In these situations, I am in charge of my behavior. Does it nearly always work? Yep, so I feel positive about their opinion of me. When I am kind, it makes me feel good. So, yeah, I want to be liked. I want to control my existence in someone else's mind. I want to be in charge of their opinion of me. And I want to know I have their esteem, admiration, and maybe their attraction. I want them to know to be near me. It's like the most natural thing in the world, but it's also ultimately out of our control. When we attempt to control it, we tip into manipulation. Worrying about someone's opinion of me makes me feel bad. Also, it's none of my business. So do the niceness without attachment to how it is received. Enjoy and rest in the fun of kindness and release the outcome from the grasp on it you never really had. It takes practice, but on the whole, you'll begin to leave every interaction knowing you have given 100% of your goodwill to the moment, and the rest is up to fate. In the immortal words of my mother, screw 'em if they can't take a joke. So, do I need to be liked? Absolutely not. I like to be liked. I enjoy being liked. I have to be liked, but it's not like this compulsive need to be liked, you know? Like my need to be praised. Story 2. For millennials accepting responsibility for student loans, this is the biggest piece of revisionist history I've ever seen. I'm a millennial, and everyone knew that large student loans were an issue. Everyone, and I mean everyone, talked about it constantly. I went to four different high schools in four different states, and in every school, every single person knew. I went to two different colleges, and in every school, every single person knew. When I got my first job out of college, every single person my age knew. But you said things like, well, I have the rest of my life to make money, and I only live once, so I'll worry about it later, or, well, I'll be in the same boat. Everyone, every single one. You knew, you took the loans anyway, and now you pretend you didn't know. And you signed the dotted line. We had the internet. It's easy to look up how much your profession pays. It's easy to find out your loan payments. You didn't care. You took the loans. So you knew, and you need to accept the harsh reality that you have nobody to complain about except yourself. The truth is the truth, and you knew. And also, doing better at anything will always require sacrificing something else. Story 3. Sometimes you are the problem in a relationship. And if people keep on leaving you, it may well be your fault, even if you don't feel like it is. People fantasize about finding the one, but a relationship is 50% finding the right person and 50% being the right person. And more often than not, you were both the problem. Lots of us are pretty crappy at having healthy relationships, and those people tend to attract each other. Usually because they relate on some level that people who don't have those issues just don't. You can work hard and make it work, but very often one or both of you won't be able or want to fix it, or neither of you will recognize the issue and it won't work. I got out of a relationship about a month ago. I knew that I was the main issue because I had a lot of things happen in my life that kind of messed me up, and going into the relationship, I still had a lot of issues that hadn't been addressed. I broke up with him because A, both of us have social anxiety, and it just doesn't work when neither person in the relationship can initiate anything. B, I couldn't drag him through my mess. I couldn't be figuring out myself with someone there who depends on consistency. I couldn't be selfish. And C, I lost interest. I have a lot of trust issues, and trying to keep myself private was exhausting. It doesn't help that I'm questioning whether or not I'm even into guys, and the fact that he said, I love you, after knowing each other for only a month and dating for a week and a half to 2 weeks. That was awkward. A lot of people say that marriage is 50-50, but it's not. Divorce is 50-50. Marriage takes 100% from both parties. and 100% communication. If you are a near perfect match, but you don't work out the things you don't like, then that is going to fester. Relationships under certain stresses are delicate things, and 100% from both sides to make it work. The beginning attraction only lasts so long, so if you really have a true attraction for the other beyond the physical, then you do whatever it takes just as long as each side puts in their 100% of themselves to make it to the end. Sometimes it's hard to tell if you are or if they are, but never make any quick decisions to vacate a relationship because you or they will wake up and realize you want them back, and it's usually too late. If you or they start to yell, don't take what they are saying to heart. Most of the time during a fight, people say things they really don't mean and they're just words. Go to your corner and cool off for a couple of hours and try to speak to one another in a normal voice. This definitely goes for friendships as well. As much as we'd like to think we were the perfect companion, we are often lacking what others want and need. So if everyone you meet is an a-hole, then maybe you're the a-hole, right? Is that how it goes? Like, as it should go? Story 4. Some people just can't be saved. You could give them every benefit in the world and they could still choose to throw it all away, and you can't do anything about it. This is a tough lesson to learn. People have to want to change. Nothing you can do can make people change if they are resistant to it. This hurts, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. I work with children who have suffered immense trauma and mistreatment, far worse than you can imagine. I work with them when they're teens and they've started to utilize coping mechanisms that society would deem to be poor, despite the fact that these coping mechanisms have kept them alive. So they may steal, lie, run away, take substances, etc. And they do it because no one has made them feel like they're worth believing in. Statistically, these children, when they become adults, they're likely not to have jobs, have healthy relationships, or even have a home. It isn't a choice, they simply don't believe in themselves enough to think they are worth the effort. It isn't the benefits they need, it's love. My wife worked as a resource teacher last school year, and there are 2 boys in grade 7 and 8 there who have been raised by a wonderful family since they were 3 years old. Caring parents who give them all the support and resources you could want. But their birth mother was a junkie who neglected them regularly and then finally left them alone in the house at 1.5 and 2.5 years old for like an entire long weekend while she went on a bender before they were rescued, hungry and covered in filth. To this day, they have serious abandonment issues and are very strange with food. They eat anything in sight, eat their lunches first thing in the morning, unless the staff intervenes and makes them leave it in their locker, beg other kids for parts of their lunches, and they eat like animals who are worried they'll miss their chance. These kids meet with therapists twice a week, have educational assistance support, a great family, and have had normal lives for a decade now. But these issues just aren't going away, and obviously their unusual behavior is a huge negative for their social lives, which isn't going to help. It's hard to envision these poor boys ever living healthy, normal lives, and they were barely old enough to remember the cruelty. If they can't overcome that with all the advantages they've had, what hope do the kids who never had those resources have? Story 5. That pain is inescapable. Not even acknowledging that pain is inevitable and preparing for it ahead of time can lessen it. You will be taken by surprise, you will be hurt, you will not enjoy it, you will not be able to numb it, and there is nothing you can do except take it on the chin. I guess I should add it's true you can prepare yourself to experience certain kinds of pain and lessen its impact. But when I said this, I meant that eventually, something was going to come up that you never prepared for and cause pain anyway. I just didn't do a good job of making that clear, sorry. Oh, and yes, pain can also bring about growth. I don't disagree with that at all. I am reminded of an iconic quote from Robert Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, and I paraphrase, quote, I have discovered why humans laugh, not because there is a levity, but because there is a wrongness. Humans laugh because something is wrong. Which is why I think that actually learning how to deal with pain, or rather, how you react to it, is one of the most important skills a human could develop. Got rejected from your dream school? How will you react? Will you just forget higher education altogether and go for the first job you find? Or will you apply to different places and review other options? Got your heart broken? Will you sit there and cry, be depressed, and refuse to move on? Or will you learn from the mistakes you might have made and keep pushing forward, get interested in new things, and work on yourself? Lost a very close friend or family member. Will you just dwell on it and never move on, or will you accept that this is life and you just have to push through? Being afraid of pain is being afraid of life itself. Every beautiful story we know about it has its share of pain, of downs as well as ups, of course, and it's just part of the journey. People wanting to improve themselves usually put themselves through painful situations, like training for a marathon, for a PR in the gym, public speaking for a new job. Yes, and like the first of the Buddha's Four Noble Truths, life is suffering. Liking the video so far or relating to any of the stories, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any of my future uploads, and it also helps us out so much. Big thanks, let's get back to the stories. Story 6. That you don't always keep the good friends you meet, but that doesn't mean you can't make more later on down the road. Keep your good friends. You become the average of the company you keep, and that's one thing people rarely talk about. You adapt to other people's personalities throughout your life. You start with your parents, your siblings, and friends, and perhaps your first boss or teacher. Also, either person can save a friendship. I used to have a close knit group, and a lot of us don't talk anymore since getting families and kids and whatnot. Two of my best friends are in the same group, and both blame the other for not reaching out to the other at whatever point in time. I know exactly what they are referring to, and I made it a point to stay in contact with both of them, even during times where we were all busy or didn't respond to texts. Now, I still talk to each of them every week, but I don't think they have talked to each other in almost a year since my last birthday, which they both came to because I'm still friends with both of them. There is literally nothing keeping their friendship from being maintained except pride. From the BoJack Horseman finale and something I've realized and made peace with, I think there are people that help you become the person that you end up being, and you can be grateful for them, even if they were never meant to be in your life forever. Story 7. Money and good looks matter. Perfect example is those TikTok stars who make small dances to songs and get millions of likes on every video for whatever reason, whether the kids liking it or crushing on the poster or they actually like the dance itself. Either way, they'll go live for their 35 million followers and will receive $500 in donations in like 5 minutes. They're set. On the positive side, there's a lot that most ugly people can do to improve their looks to a decent level. Most importantly, getting in shape, having good hygiene, dressing well, and grooming well. The stuff you are born with and can't change is much less important. And while money doesn't buy happiness, it can free you up enough so you can find it. And if you don't have enough good looks, just sprinkle some more money on top of it, right? And if you have neither, well, get buzzed until you don't care anymore. Story 8. Nobody is truly selfless, and that's okay. The more you examine this concept, the more it seems to be philosophical noise that can only exist by redefining selfless or altruistic or whatever word you're inclined to use, so much so that it becomes useless. The initial argument is that nothing can be selfless because the act of doing it makes you feel good. So, what if I unknowingly do something that helps someone else? No, because your action lacks intention. But what if I create a robot that does good deeds? Is the robot selfless? No, because the robot just does it to fulfill an urge it was designed to fulfill. The simple act of choosing to do a good deed inevitably makes the deed selfish because it's the fulfillment of that choice. The only way committing the deed affects you is by fulfilling your choice, so you're selfish. The original obvious definition of selfless is clear and defeats this whole argument. A selfless act is a deed that helps someone more than it helps you. The Good Place had an interesting idea about this. Spoilers ahead for those who care. Essentially, one guy figures out the system and tries to live a truly selfless life. This leads to him living in the middle of the woods, doing everything himself, only eating beets and drinking his own distilled whiz. He's also a total pushover because it would be selfish to say no, which could leave that person being robbed of happiness. The point I took away from it was that it's not good to be completely selfless all the time. Don't be selfish, but your happiness is important too. And sometimes you have to put yourself first. Being happy makes you a better person, and to be happy, you have to be a bit selfish at times. And don't let people use your selflessness to exploit you or to push you around. There's a guy named Robin Hanson who is an interesting thinker, and he's co authored a book called The Elephant in the Brain about the hidden motives in our daily lives. The book says exactly that nobody is truly selfless, but Hanson doesn't seem to find that depressing or disheartening. As far as I remember, he put it like this: humans don't look that bad when compared to other animals. The only way we look bad is when we compare ourselves to the angels we pretend to be. Story 9. First impressions are a freaking big deal. I worked at a pretty small retail chain in Australia that was doing very well overseas. Every now and then, Big Boss from overseas flies over to check up on how things were going. All I've heard is witchy things about this woman. Anyway, one unassuming day, this lady walks right up to the counter, and within 10 seconds, I say, "Hi, how you doing today?" with a smile. This lady kind of awkwardly laughs, and my store manager laughs hysterically and is like, "OMG, that's Nicole. Ha ha ha, you goof. How rude, you assumed she was a customer." And Nicole just looked to my manager politely and said, "Well, actually, you should assume everyone is a customer and treat them in that exact way." That was perfect. This was my first job and I was totally embarrassed, but it was flipped and I realized that that interaction actually looked great for me. And I immediately impressed the big boss. Stupid of my manager to try and humiliate me. Also, I had this classmate in college who was seriously just the sweetest Disney princess of a girl, but she was as dumb as a box of rocks and knew it. People assumed she was being humble because she was so sweet. I'm not joking, she nailed like 6 different interviews since we graduated, but she can't keep a job past her 1 year review. Her first impression is so good, she's worked for some of the country's top firms, eventually being let go, but still, some places are a dream to get a final interview from. More than some negative attitude people give bad impressions, she gives unreal first impressions. It made me work on that skill. Most of it is being genuine and friendly, but she had it down to an art form. Also, consistency is key. I know some people, including myself, who always make a blunt first impression. If you don't change who you are to make a good first impression, you earn a lot of trust and loyalty in, say, a few weeks. I don't mean to be crappy all the time, but you shouldn't ever need to put on a front to make a good first impression on somebody that you will be spending a lot of time with. Your boss? Sure. In a cubicle scenario, he'll likely never work side by side with you. Your colleagues, though? Someone you want to romance with, a friend, your roommate? I'm not going to pretend to be someone else. It's an act and will break down eventually. Then I just look like a phony and a chump. I'll add that if yourself is a stinky, lazy jerk, then go ahead and put some effort into being presentable and professional. Story 10. People can just simply fall out of love with you for no reason. You fretting about whether it's you or something else or the investment is basically you giving them the reasons to strengthen the reason why they stop loving you. When they could very much not have a reason at all, feelings and priorities can change. More people need to understand the difference between lust and love. Lots of young people think they love their SO, but really it's just a biological urge. It takes hard emotion sometimes to figure out who you truly love. Like how some people don't become religious until someone they truly cared about passes away. A friend of mine did something really dumb once and ended up in the hospital for 2 days. When he finally woke up, to his surprise, his girlfriend was there and was the only one there. Turns out she knew something was up when he wasn't answering the phone. She found him at his apartment and called 911 and took off work for the next 2 days to stay with him in the hospital until he woke up. As you can imagine, the emotions of hearing that in person hit him hard, and that's when he found out how much he loved her. It's like how people become best friends after surviving something very difficult together. Yet, most people today never get close to passing, and people are simply friends because they were neighbors, perhaps. My sister started dating a very kind, caring man during a very unstable period of her life. Our father was terminally ill, and he was slowly getting worse and worse. She even warned her SO in the early stage of dating that if he felt like he wouldn't be able to handle his illness and all the fallout after our father's pending passing, she would understand, but that we would have to break it off then and there, simply because she would not be able to deal with that on top of everything else. He was almost insulted that she even suggested such a thing and told her they would go through this horrible time together. He has been by her side every step of the road since. The day before our amazing father passed, He told her to hold on to this boyfriend, that he was the good, caring person she deserved. He was right. Losing our father 2 months ago has been the hardest thing we've ever experienced in our life, and her SO has been there for her even during her most unlovable moments of anger, grief, and depression. She will never forget the moment right before she took a seat on the front row during my dad's funeral, and seeing him standing there in his black blouse, shaven face, and the most compassionate, meaningful look in his eyes. And that was the moment she knew she truly loved him. And there you have it. If you liked any of these stories and at least one of them got to you, here's more for you. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video, and thanks for hanging with